Welcome, everybody, to the Lead Like an Ally virtual training demo and just introduction to what folks might need to know early on their ally journey. And so I'm really excited to share some of the things that my team's been working on. If I haven't met you before, my name is Julie, and I'm an author, a speaker, and a trainer. I host a couple podcasts focused on workplace inclusion, and a subject near and dear to my heart is how to have this conversation earlier with our kiddos. As a mother of three girls, albeit white girls, I understand that the world is going to be different for them. And that doesn't make me feel very good, just from a gender lens. And of course, diversity has way more dimensions than just gender and race and ethnicity and socioeconomic background. We'll talk about all the different aspects of diversity today a bit. But that's really why I do what I do. I just can't fathom the thought of hundreds of years away from gender and racial equity existing for this next generation. So that's something near and dear to my heart. Really thankful right before the pandemic, I had the opportunity to do a TEDx on a real stage, which is the last stage I've spoken on almost 2 years ago. But really thankful that I get to do work that's really aligned with my why and purpose. And I know just by looking through the chats that I am in a similar group of like-minded folks that are really passionate about this. So today's going to be super interactive. I want to hear your stories, your ideas, your strategies. Do engage with us. Chat's probably the best way. At the end, like I said, we'll have plenty of time for questions, at least 15 minutes. So if you want to come on live and ask your question vocally, that is totally fine. I'm just going to keep the lines muted for background noise just to minimize the impact or distractions to the group for now. But by all means, continue to introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't yet, and use that to give us ideas on things you're looking for, strategies, resources, questions that you still have. So the content that we have prepared for you today is really a quick overview on why we developed a virtual self-paced bite-sized program. What we've seen in the diversity space, I spent 12 years in corporate America before starting Next Pivot Point, this business focused on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And I've been at this for 7 years. And albeit very early on, it was very focused on gender. As a white woman, I thought that was where my voice could have the most traction. Well, I quickly discovered that the conversation is way more complex than that. And by isolating gender alone, I was really doing a disservice to folks that have different lived experiences than I do. So that has been part of my ally journey, and part of the journey that I've learned along the way is that there is no destination. It is a journey, which means we always have more to learn and often unlearn. I think that's the hardest part of diversity, is that sometimes we have to let go of our preconceived notions, our stereotypes, our own lived experiences, and that myth of meritocracy that, well, if I did it, then everyone else can. And that honestly has been a huge revelation for me. And I'm working with organizations that are led by the majority group. I mean, most organizations I work with or talk with, 80% white male at the top of that C-suite level, that board level, certainly the CEO level. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. It just isn't representative of the customers and communities we want to serve. And so a lot of organizations are realizing, like, we need to better reflect our communities. We need to do better, but we don't even know what to do. Like, where do I start? And oftentimes it is education, it's awareness. And so we'll talk about that why and the what. So if you're here like, Julie, tell me what I need to talk about, tell me what I need to do, I promise you, I'm going to give you 10 ideas that are courses in our Lean Like an Ally program. And then we're really fortunate to have one of my clients, Amber Bailey, is going to join us. She leads learning and development and the diversity efforts at Cornerstone, a financial organization. And she has just had an amazing journey herself as an ally. And over the last couple of years and working in this program together, she can just give you a window into what to expect, what she wished she knew, challenges. She's going to be a totally open book. So you can ask her any questions that you also are wondering about yourself. And then we'll have plenty of times to kind of think about one thing you want to take away from the conversation. I always love just one nugget, one tidbit. We all have a lot vying for our time. So if you're going to spend an hour with us, I want it to have an impact. I'll definitely give you some ideas and some strategies. I'll give you plenty of time, like I said, to ask questions throughout and at the end. So let's get some more interaction going. And I love, love, love all the introductions. Hi, Turquoise. Hi, Donna. Hi, Christy. Hi, Susan. Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, Todd. Great introductions there. Keep them coming if you haven't introduced yourself. Great opportunity to network and connect with folks offline. So the first question I want to ask is, what theme, if you had to pick one, and I know this is a hard question, this is a single answer. If you had to pick one, there is another if you really can't decide. But I'm curious, if you had to pick one theme for DEI in 2022, I think we only have 6 weeks left of 2021, which is really hard to believe, and really only 3 real working weeks, I think, for those of us in the US, at least, I should say, to be inclusive. So if you had to pick one, you can pick other if you would like. If you're truly focused on something different and want to comment, I'd love to see chats about others if it was hard for you to pick. Good, we have almost half have participated, so I'll give you just 20 more seconds. I've got my good luck Wonder Woman mug today. All right, we're up to 70%. Yay. My rule of thumb is always 80%. I don't know if that's like the 80-20 rule or why that is stuck in my head as a good number. I just need one more person. Yay, we got to 80%. Awesome. All right, here are the results. So let's share those. Anyone surprised by these? They're pretty even. So culture was the leader. About a third of folks put that. Accountability, a close second. Leadership and awareness. So, and no one put other. I put that in the last video. So I was like, yeah, I know someone's going to say I missed something. So what's really interesting about this data, so we had 33 folks respond. So for whatever that's worth, at statisticians, if that's enough of a sample size. I did this same poll on LinkedIn 3 weeks ago. For what it's worth, I think we had close to 300 folks. It was like 290 something respond. Mixed audience, of course, because it's LinkedIn, anyone could see it. But it was really interesting. Accountability was number one and culture was number two. So we've got it a little flip-flopped, which of course the data and the numbers, that's going to happen. But just food for thought there on why that's important. And I'm seeing a lot of research, reading a lot of research on culture and purpose being a part of culture. There's actually some really great HBR articles I'm happy to share with folks that I've just, probably 3 in the last month that I've seen come in through my feed. So for what it's worth, I think the whole idea of having a purposeful culture, because what are we seeing? The great resignation, right? I don't have a single client right now that has enough talented people on their team, right? Does anybody have fully staffed with all the people you need? No, you're not alone. You are not alone. So if it feels overwhelming having to spend so much time on recruiting and hiring, you're not alone. But oftentimes when I work with organizations, I ask, well, if you're focused on recruiting diverse talent, what are you doing to make sure they want to stay? Right. And sometimes they'll say, well, you have a retention strategy. Like, we're human beings. Let's like talk about feelings and like why someone would want to work for you. And especially Gen Z. I know we talked a lot about the millennials when they entered the workforce. I think technically I'm a millennial, Gen Xer. It depends on the definitions. But anyway, Gen Z is really causing a stir with their desire for purpose, and they see inclusion as a non-negotiable too. So as you think about attracting the next generation of talent, this conversation's not going away about culture and diversity and inclusion. It's very much going to stay. Sometimes I'll wake up in like a cold sweat at like 2 a.m. and be like, is it ever going to end? Is this work going to go away? Because I just really feel so lucky to get to do it. Sometimes I feel like people have to pinch me to like, this is real. You get to do this, and that somehow it's going to go away, or somehow people are going to care about something else. But I think the good news is that we're focused on this long term. So just I love the comments here in the chat. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Yeah, Lisa, to me, culture change includes accountability, leadership, and awareness. Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of an umbrella that you could put under that. All right, great introductions. Hi, Patricia. All right, so I want to start with why. So I mentioned I've been at this work for about 7 years now. Done a ton of research of my own, read a lot of research. I mean, books, podcasts, like tried to consume so much content with diversity, equity, and inclusion. All that to say, y'all remember Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule that you have to do something or experience something for 10,000 hours to like really be an expert. And I don't think DEI is something that I'm never going to call myself an expert at. I'm always going to be on the journey to learning how to be an ally. And I'm never going to self-proclaim that expertise or even that I am an ally, because I'm still learning just like we all are. But, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. And people have a lot going on in their lives right now. We have virtual meeting fatigue. I mean, when you look at a Zoom meeting on your calendar, does anyone get excited anymore? I do occasionally, and that says a lot about the human being I get to interact with on the other end. But come on, I mean, we're all a little tired of it, right? Lots of priorities. I think I saw some data. We're working 10% more on average than we were back in March of 2020. I would have not predicted that. That actually really does surprise me because we don't have our commutes anymore, which is maybe why people have squeezed in work and like not having healthy boundaries around work and life, and the blur that it's become. It was always a blur before. We can never compartmentalize work and life. But I think we've really realized how much we can't do that now. We're bringing our whole human self to work if we're working from our living rooms. Burnout, mental health. Latest I saw from Harvard Business Review was 41% of folks are thinking about leaving their current job. Okay. That's a really high number. And the number for mental health, folks that have identified with having some issues with mental health in the workplace, is in the 40s as well. So these are issues that are happening with our teams, with humans that we're interacting with on a daily basis. What I also found is that people don't want to be told what to do, especially with diversity. You can get a big backlash from mandatory required learning. A lot of my clients are going that direction next year, which I absolutely applaud. Anything that's important should be expected. But it does create a backlash effect. So what we've tried to do with our program is create a choose your own adventure approach, bite-sized 5-minute learning in a psychologically safe environment. So I don't have to be there with all my peers on camera, them seeing me like, oh, grimace or not fully understand or ask a question that, maybe isn't the most politically correct, but it's still a question I have, because we've got to meet people where they're at. And I've seen so many people become better over the years. And I know it's frustrating for folks, like, really, really, do we have to spend time educating them? I don't know what else to do. We have a group of, a majority group that hasn't had these lived experiences themselves. And the only way that I have found to help them understand the inherent privilege that comes with certain dimensions of race and gender and ethnicity and so on is to really educate them on the lived experiences of others. So people need small windows. And unfortunately, we live in a very segregated society. Look across the Zoom room. I'm really glad to see a lot of people that probably identify as men. Just forgive me for making that leap based on your name. And some of you I know, but a lot of times it is women, and primarily women of color, leading this conversation. And that's something I feel really strongly about, is how do we all support? Because that emotional labor that's had to been done, especially by women of color, it's just not fair to carry that burden. Not only are you experiencing that double marginalization, but then you're having to educate people about why that happens. And sometimes have to really over explain too. So for all those reasons, that's why we've developed the program. And you're probably thinking, okay, what should my DEI training include? And by all means, these are not everything I wanted to cover. But when I launched the program 2 years ago, and since we've revamped client feedback, and Amber will share more about that in a minute, but overwhelmingly, folks told me, um, it's too long, which I just grimaced because it was 52 5-minute videos, wanted to be 5 minutes a week. People told me that was too much time. I'm like, really? Like, you don't have 5 minutes a week? All that to say, we've trimmed it down to 32, and that includes an introduction, a short introduction and conclusion video. All of them are bite sizes. So all of these little phrases that you're seeing are five-ish minute videos. Some are a little bit longer, but most are about 5 minutes. And it really maps out how to show up in this conversation. What education do I need to do on my own, right? To be inclusive and to not be, for better words, a jerk at work. How do I show up as somebody that really wants to be inclusive? And so the idea here is that people can kind of choose where to start. We encourage people to at least do the first module, which is build your ally plan. And I'll talk more about each one a little bit here in a minute. But you can see, like, influencing others. And this is probably our most popular course. I just debriefed with a client that went through this last full year with the program yesterday. And that's what you said. People loved tangible skills and tips and questions, things like how to be empathetic, how to be vulnerable, how to show trust. And those things are really misunderstood too as principles. And sometimes a tough pill to swallow, I think, for folks that were taught their whole life not to be vulnerable. That was a sign of weakness or not being, be a stoic leader. And so these topics all came from our most burning questions from clients and the courses that we've taught over the last 7 years that have really had an impact. A lot of people like to jump to unconscious bias, and most people have done some unconscious bias training at this point. My feeling on this is do not start there. I purposely put that in the back half because I think people take really mixed messages from that about either everyone has bias, so I'm okay, or it's an excuse for bad behavior, or great, I'm the bad guy. None of those are the way we frame it. But unfortunately, when you start there, it can create that misperception. And of course, deep dives into the big three. There's so many more aspects of diversity, but just for simplicity, focus time, we spent time on gender, race, and LGBTQ. And then I think one thing that we enhanced with the program that we got from client feedback is how do I take myself as an individual to collective action, right? And that's systemic change, because we can talk all day about individuals, but until the systems change to be more inclusive, is not going to really make an impact. Okay. So that's kind of the idea for the formula for the course. I'll just give you kind of a quick training and a snapshot if I could. This maybe gives you, what I hope you get is some ideas for your training plans for 2022, gaps, additional thoughts. And I love feedback as I'm going through this. What's already on your training plan? What's new? What do you like? What don't you like? We're very much in feedback mode, and we're happy to give everyone a guest pass to go in and check out the content if you haven't already. So the first key pillar is really about make a plan. I mean, anything in your life, and I've noticed this, I'm writing a new book right now. If I don't have a plan, I'm not going to do it. Like, it's just flat out. If it's not on my calendar, if I don't have goals around it, like, it's a thought. So put down why this is important. Think about where you want to be in the future. How do you want to be showing up in this conversation? What does that look like for you? And then put goals to it. And I give people a lot of sample templates and ideas for this, but it really starts with closing your eyes and really having a bold vision for how you envision allyship and what being an ally means to you. I purposely don't give people a definition. It's not a perfect term. Performative, unreal allyship does exist, unfortunately. We talk about it with the lens of active allyship. So this isn't sitting on the side watching bad behavior go down. As an ally, you use your voice, and we're very clear about that, as well as the roles you play as an active ally. And influencing others. Again, this is the most popular part of the course, and so we do put it early on. These are tangible skills that people can take action on right away. So how do you really slow down and listen to somebody when they share something hard with you? if you're like most of us kind of teasing the program, like you'll have to go in advice mode and make it all about us. That is not what someone wants when they share something hard with you. They want to be heard. But how do you do that? Like what questions, what things people actually need, like the talk tracks for that, as well as vulnerability. Like what does that mean? Admitting mistakes, showing weaknesses, saying I don't know, giving people a lot of kind of a choose your own adventure approach to what vulnerability means to you. Because there's no way you can build trust with somebody that's different than you if you show up pretending like you know everything. Like I've encountered that actually feedback we got from one of the program from someone that thought that they already knew everything in the program was really interesting. But the feedback from the client was, but they don't know everything. I was like, well, that's kind of like the definition of vulnerability is like they think they know everything. But sometimes insecurity can show up and we have to be secure about our insecurities. We all have insecurities. We're humans. Vulnerability is about showing it and being open with it. And that's how we build trust because without trust, you can't have a healthy allyship relationship. And you got to be willing to talk about tough stuff. We teach kind of a 3Ds framework in the course. Define the issue, discuss it, two-way, that's where problems happen, and then decide. It really should be that simple. I have read Fierce Conversations, Radical Candor, Crucial Conversations, so many frameworks. And I've always loved like, what do I do? What do I say? So I really tried to take all of that and make it really simple with an acronym that is easy to remember. And then how do you give feedback as an ally? And by the way, these skills are really transferable to leadership, right? Who doesn't want to be able to give and receive feedback as a leader? And coaching skills are so misunderstood too. People think coaches have the answers. Nope. Coaches listen. Coaches promote self-discovery. They refrain from giving advice. And that's how we define it in the program with a model for how to coach. Knowing your ally role, we introduce an umbrella of terms. So we talk about mentorship, sponsorship, advocacy, and being that challenger and that coach. So it's choose your own adventure. And so we ask people to kind of pick a spoke or two that they want to focus on and really identify who are my mentors and who am I mentoring. This is a two-way street on all of these aspects. This is a new one that we developed because of the overwhelming demand from this year. Psychological safety is a huge buzzword going around in corporate America. Unfortunately, most workplaces, people do not feel this. And all that means is showing, being able to speak, or do things without the fear of retribution. Okay. Also, the opposite is covering, meaning I have to minimize or maximize parts of myself to fit in oftentimes with the majority groups. That means women and people of color are doing that legwork a lot more often than folks in the majority group. But we got to be intentional. We talk about 3 key pillars for an effective DEI strategy and training plan. You have to be intentional, consistent, and have your senior leadership team engaged. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. That is actually our criteria now for working with new clients is I can't help you if those things aren't true. I've learned that lesson the hard way of wanting it for somebody that doesn't want it themselves. And you got to have those 3 things. Also unconscious bias. I'm guessing backgrounds of y'all, you probably assessed maybe your unconscious bias or read about it. There is kind of a science piece to it. So I have my certification from the Cultural Intelligence Center on unconscious bias. And it's really helpful in practice I see and call in folks that have stereotype issues or microaggress other people. I'm actually watching, is anyone watching the Colin Kaepernick special on Netflix by any chance? Oh my gosh, the microaggressions that he experienced as well, and flat out macroaggressions that he experiences as a child is just so heartbreaking to watch. But it does a really good job, only halfway through, it does a really good job of breaking down microaggressions and regular everyday interactions. It's like it's almost so below the radar that people don't notice it until you put on your radar, right? To look for those things and use it as an opportunity not to shame or blame people, to really call them in to be better. It's just unacceptable behavior that people need to be held accountable for. And a lot of times they don't know that they're doing it, which is super unfortunate. Gender, there's actually 4 areas of gender bias that we speak to. And this is from Joan C. Williams, where it works for women at work. The maternal wall is still alive and well. Most organizations we work with, I think, gosh, what's the US at right now? Is like 20% have paid leave. This is a real problem. It's going to be until we systemically address it. But there's also things infighting amongst women, that tightrope of being too masculine or too feminine, going to be just right. That folks just don't. Once you understand it, then you can see it, and then you can call folks in when you're seeing that. And really address like that is sexist. That's a problematic statement, or that's an assumption you're making. Those kind of statements, those kind of conversations need to be happening with folks that are needing to be held accountable. Racism as well. So this is something I partner with. I have a partner, a woman of color. We've done this work for the last 3 or 4 years on privilege in the workplace. So this is kind of a snapshot, a mini course, and the things that we teach in our 6-week course. But it's really just understanding your role in the system. This is more from the lens of a white person wanting to better understand other people of color or other ethnicities and the lived experiences of others, as well as signaling. You can't say I'm an ally. That's super problematic, especially in the racial space that has been used very inappropriately. Is signal. How can you show that I want to be helpful? How can you show that I'm on the journey? And then striving to be an ally for LGBTQ. We talk about researching what you don't know. It's unfair to ask anyone that's different to explain to you what it's like to be them, unless you have a really high level of trust and a very deep relationship with that person. Generally inappropriate. But sharing your pronouns, understanding the spectrum of gender is another way to better show that you want to be an ally. And then address systemic change is the last piece. We talk about strategy, measurement, and the employee experience, really making sure that inclusion is threaded throughout every experience from recruiting to separation. And that's great for people leaders, but also anyone in an organization that wants to ask questions or lead initiatives, especially folks in your diversity council or employee resource groups. Lots of great ideas there. Last thing I'll share, and then I'm going to turn it over to JC and her team, who's going to give a quick demo of the actual system itself. So if you do want to guest pass and you want to check it out and go in, we're giving those totally free for the next 21 days. So we just ask that you give us some feedback if you have a chance to participate. But each course has an actual workbook associated with it too. So you can see it's a really comprehensive 2 to 3 pages for each one of those five-minute videos. So it has the snapshots of the slides because people really like to see those while they're following along. But then each course has a self-reflection moment that you can actually type directly into. So it's an interactive PDF. And then if you do have more time, you want to spend more than 5 to 10 minutes on that course, there's resources. So most courses have 2 to 5 resources that are optional, that are free, videos, podcast episodes, other things that we think are helpful that we have used in our training as well. So just to show you kind of everything that's included from a high level. I know I went through that super quickly, just in the interest of time and getting you all to interact. I'd love to share in the chat, reflecting on those 10 learning objectives, those 10 areas as I went through those. What's resonating as a need, or other topics that I might have missed, or other topics that you're working on. I'd love if you would share kind of what's top of mind of those 10 and share those in the chat. And I'll quickly back up to the 10 slides so you can see it too. Back up real quick. Sorry to close your eyes. All right, so these 10, I'm just curious, feedback on these. Trust me, I was with a whiteboard thinking like, there's no way I can make this course short. And I had to trim out 20 courses to get to these 30, which was extremely painful to do. Systemic change is resonating, candid conversations, LGBTQ and influence. Awesome. The why. And I know everyone talks about Simon Sinek and start with the why. Yes. But that's like how our brains work. We're emotional creatures. We justify things rationally. If you don't have a why for this work, I've seen so many people bumble and stumble, especially with the events of last summer. How many people, well-intentioned people, came out And what are they doing now? It's really, really frustrating to see that. And that's why we start with the why, because if you don't have a why for this work, much like me and my children, although a very simple why, that is deeply connected inside my soul. There is no way to undo that. I will be 70 years old and still be passionate about this. I certainly hope so and expect so. Roland likes the unpacking racism. I love that. I love that. Lisa said, I think we all need to build skills in sharing candid conversations, providing feedback without shaming her. But we talk about shame and blame. And I love what Brene Brown says about that. Like shame and blame isn't a vehicle for social justice, but accountability, don't mishear me, accountability is absolutely important. But when you finger point at somebody in shame or blame, they usually get defensive, and more often they get really entrenched in that bad behavior too. They keep doing it. I've come across enough trolls online that I've had that experience, and it's not a positive outcome. Corey, build your ally plan and know your ally role, inclusive meetings, awesome stuff coming in here. Thanks, everybody. I love it. I love it. Anything I missed? I'm curious, something that you're working on that isn't on this list. Cancel culture. Yes. Megan, I'm building a new course on accountability, and cancel culture is the first piece to that. Thanks for highlighting that. Yeah, it's a big problem. Like they did one thing wrong. I am done with them. Now, you do need to match somebody with the significance of their comment with the significance of the reaction. Accountability is important, but it's also usually an opportunity to help that person be better. Real quick story, and then we'll get to JC after the demo is I had someone, presumably someone in the majority group a month ago in a training about diversity. And it was his first experience in diversity, which I did not know, but based on his chats, it was very problematic what he was saying. He was very offended, in particular, by the word privilege. And, I get that from time to time. I usually try to explain, educate what we mean by it is it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you didn't work hard, but invite people into the discussion. Well, afterwards, he had a candid conversation with the person leading the diversity efforts and had a big realization of like, this was my first experience. I was just really thrown off by it. Right. And so we could have shame and blame that person and lost them forever, or we could have used it as an opportunity to invite them to stay in the conversation. I see that. Hands up. Yeah. Interviewing and hiring processes. Thanks, Adrian. I love that. Yes, competencies, says Lisa. I love that. And I love competency-based models for inclusion. Well, terrific. Thanks everybody for bearing with me as we flew through that. The last thing I'm going to share, and then Jason's going to actually help you see the program live so you can see how the videos are set up. And that way, if you choose to go in and do the guest pass, you can actually take the whole course. It's only a few hours. If you can buzz through that in the next 21 days, be my guest and do that. I would love for you to consider using it with your team too. But we'll give you a quick setup so you know how to get in there and navigate it. Good thing is it's really easy to use, and we can take this content to your own LMS. It's all MP4 videos and PowerPoint or PDF workbook files. So very compatible. We haven't, knock on wood, had an LMS that it can't work with. So we're happy to license the content as well. That's actually the most popular thing people do. All the things that I want you to consider, whether you use this program or something different next year, focus on the magic middle. That middle layer of management is drastically overlooked. So many organizations I work with say, yep, senior leadership, we're on board. Our board is on board, for a lot of financial reasons and accountability issues, thankfully, but they're there in the front lines. But what's missing? The folks like me that have been in the workforce for 20 plus years when diversity wasn't a thing. And, people didn't talk about these things. It's a huge problem. And those are the folks that are accountable and leading the employee experience significantly inside organizations. So that's who we want to bring into the conversation as folks in the majority group. And I feel like this does that with a psychologically safe place that's on your own time at a self-paced, very quick bite-sized nugget so you can take action on right away. And leverages, resources. So a lot of my clients will take the article, take the video, and just bring the workbook to a team meeting, an existing team meeting, and use it as what they call like a bite-sized learning opportunity. Or one of my clients calls it their DEI snackable. And I just love that, right? We don't have to have this big full-blown discussion or town hall about it. We should do those things too, but oftentimes it's the micro experiences that set up how important this is. Like this is just threaded through how we do everything in our organization. People start to really believe it. Okay, so I'm gonna just check and see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, yeah, Gloria, does the magic middles include frontline? Yes, yes. So the way I describe magic middle is really anyone below the C-suite and in front lines, any bit between front lines and C-suite. This content is really built for them. That's in my corporate experience. I was in middle management, I think for 10 out of the 12 years. So I remember being that person, and I remember how much I didn't get access to these tools. My life would have been so much easier had I known better. But I was kind of grappling and figuring out on my own. Well, unfortunately, 7 years later, apparently nothing has changed. And that's still what people will tell me is like, I feel overlooked. I don't have enough time to do training. That's the biggest thing, right? So 5-minute nuggets. I think people can make the time to do that, right? Squeeze it in between meetings, make it a part of just how you do your job. All right, JC, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us a quick demo of the LMS, and then go ahead and keep your questions coming in the chat while JC, you take the screen. Oh, I saw a question come in. How critical is emotional intelligence? I think people need to understand and learn to be self-aware to work on DEI work. Yes. That's a part I really appreciate, Patricia, you asking that. I had emotional intelligence in the old course. That was one thing I filtered out. I'm actually doing a lot of research on emotional agility right now. Susan David's work, if anyone's followed her. I'm a little bit obsessed with Brene Brown, and she had her on her podcast. So if you want a snippet of it. So I'm kind of shifting from EQ to emotional intelligence, and I'm actually working on getting certified in social emotional learning for kids right now. So I'm on my own journey, and as I evolve, we will definitely have content on emotions and emotions in the workplace. So I appreciate you answering that, and that was a really hard cut to make, but just for the transition, we did that. Thanks for the question. All right, JC, I'll let you take it away.
Good morning. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep. You're all good.
All right. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an overview of what you would see and any of your staff when they get the program. So this is the learner page. If you use our LMS, it just has a couple links to the website. You can take an online assessment and then a link to Julie's podcast. Basically, in here shows any courses that you have signed up for. Julie does have other courses beside the Lead Like an Ally program. So they would all show up down here and it would show your progress. So you would just click on it. It takes you to this and you would just hit start learning now, or you can resume where you left off if you were in the middle of something. The video will start automatically. This is Julie's welcome video. And then as you can see, all 32 videos are in here, really easy to access, as well as the downloadable PDF workbooks that you can write directly inside of. So you can download each one separately, or we have the full version if you want to download the whole thing. The only reason it looks locked right now is we do want you to watch the welcome video first. Once that is finished, it'll unlock everything. And like Julie said, it's a choose your own adventure, pick your video that you want to watch, pick your workbook to go along with it, and spend as much time as you want doing that. The other really cool feature that we wanted to show you is if you are a manager and you have a team and you want to see how everything works, right? First, you can ask the experts. This is for anybody. When you type your question in here, you need to assign it to a channel. All the way at the bottom is the Lead Like an Ally channel. This question goes directly to me or Julie, and it can be about anything in the course that you've seen that you want answered. So this is like a great way to get a hold of Julie really quickly to get a question answered. Then I want to show you up here, this is what your user menu will look like. If you have a team assigned to you, there will be people in it. Right now, I put our staff in it. So this is what it would look like. All of the different team members that you have underneath you would show up just like this. It gives you a quick overview of if they have any overdue courses or if they're in progress of anything. So when you open up each person, it'll tell you that they're in progress with any courses that they have, how long they've spent on it. And the big one that you'd want to look at is the statistics. So this person, you can see, this is when
Michelle's on our team, by the way. So
yes,
we're
yes,
showing you real
she's our
data.
person. This isn't anybody that I'm showing you, yes. So this is when we gave her access. This is the last time that she logged in. She has one active course, and this is how long she's been in the program when she was doing it. She has one in progress. When she completes one of the videos and workbooks, this will show a completed. There's just a few other stats down here, but these are the main ones that you can look at your team very quickly to see. There's a way also to get a whole report of everybody that you need to see, like a quick view. The other nice thing is this question and answers. Everybody has an option within the course to ask questions, and you can see if they've asked a question and if the question has been answered, as well as I'm going to show you one other in Catherine's, and she's also a team member. So you can see that she started the program, and then here's her statistics as well. So she's got one in progress. She just did it for a few minutes. And then under questions and answers, if they had asked a question, it would be in here. This takes you back, sorry, to your learning page again for your course. And if you look in here, there was a place, there was a place that you can make a comment that you can see what anybody else has written. If they have a question about something that they've read, you can see that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is we have the ability for you to see teams within teams. So however you want to set up the team content, we had, for an example, we had an association that has a lot of different companies within this association, and each one of them had a manager inside of that company that we set up with their team members underneath it. But the association itself could see everybody. So we can set this up any way that you want for any managers to see any other team members, higher or lower than however you have it. So it's very easy to use. But again, like Julie said, we can also import all of this into your own LMS, so you don't need to use it within this one.
Thanks, JC. This
You're
is
welcome.
awesome. Yeah, great overview. I appreciate you doing
Okay.
that so quickly. There's so much more to the program, but we just wanted to give you really a quick snapshot so that if you choose to use your free guest pass as a result of coming today, we're happy to offer that to you. We just wanted you to understand how it works, and it should be really easy to go in, check out the welcome video, and check out a few of the courses that pique your interest. Three things that I think JC did a great job of explaining. One, the reporting feature. So whether your LMS, your own LMS has it, or you want to leverage ours, running reports for accountability is really, really important. I'm hearing that a lot for next year. And making it making it expected learning. That's my favorite phrase so far. Required and mandatory. I was still like, oh, just it makes you think you have to go to like sexual harassment training or something you don't want, but expected. This is expected, especially for people leaders. So you can do reporting and discussions. So having places where people can introduce themselves, can ask questions, and have discussions amongst each other. Whether you do that, some of our clients do that on a Teams channel or Slack channel too, to reinforce the concepts, but we have that ability with ours. Last thing I'd say is recognition. So badging and certification. So we can offer those through our LMS. As well as I have a client that does like their own badging program, and each course you get like a sticker to put on it. It sounds kind of cheesy, but people honestly do really appreciate those milestone recognitions. I'm seeing some chats come in. Great. Thanks, Catherine, for grabbing the assessment link. Yes, there is a free online assessment. Catherine shared the link there. That's something we offer to all of our clients. It's 20 questions. It's by no means comprehensive, but it's definitely a starting point to figure out where to focus on DEI. I saw a couple more questions. Jennifer, I appreciate your question. I'd like to perform a cultural assessment. Yes. Okay. So similar question there. Click on that link, Jennifer. That should be a great start. And we do include that in our program for folks that want to start out. So just nextpivotpoint.com/assessment. It's free. You get your results right away. And it's really good to compare notes with your leadership team. No one scores perfect on those. So if your number is 60, 70%, like that's actually pretty average. So don't feel bad. It just means more work to do with DEI. And then how, Floria thinks, how can this virtual experience complement face-to-face socially distanced training? Yeah, if your team is in person, this is awesome to do as pre-reads, pre-work for an existing team meeting. So we share our tools a lot. That's why those 5-minute videos, it's fully, I think that's a fair expectation to say, hey, before you attend this live training or come in person to learn this, here's a 5-minute video that reinforces what we've covered last time or this time on empathy or inclusive meetings. Come prepared to discuss the discussion questions that are already done for you in the workbook. So you don't have to come up, if you're a meeting manager or trainer, you don't have to come up with like all the thought questions and all the instructional design. All that work's done for you. You really just like literally pick it up and take it with you. So you can download the workbooks individually or as a collective file. That's why we sliced and diced them that way, because people do choose their own adventure with the content too. All right, I want to introduce everyone to Amber. Amber is an amazing client that I've had a chance to work with over the last, 2.5, 3 years even. Amber has brought several cohorts onto the Lead Like an Ally program, and she is the education manager at Cornerstone Credit Union League. Amber, if you want to come on and say hello to everybody, I'd love for them to just learn a bit about your journey through the program and the cohorts that you've had come on. Help us understand where you were and where your team is now with the Lead Like an Ally program.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Amber Bailey. I'm the education manager for the Cornerstone Credit Union League, like Julia had mentioned. We service credit unions within the Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas region. So they are considered our members. We provide them with education training and so on. So we initially rolled out Lead Like an Ally. We've done a lot of work in the arena of gender bias in particular, and we really needed to make a shift. So that shift came on board as we started to talk about, what other different biases, what other different types of inclusion do we need to start talking about as a group. And it made sense for us to start with what it's going to take for us as a company and for our members to be allies in this space so that we can start having those conversations. So Julie has been a fantastic resource for us. She has spoken at quite a few of our conferences. And so when she introduced Lead Like an Ally to us, it was kind of the first online learning platform that we invested in because of the great content. The beauty of it is how small snippets the learning is. So you don't have to sit through an entire hour-long session. It's easily digestible. And that's what we truly needed in order to supplement our other conferences, our other education that we were offering our members. So where we started with offering the Lead Like an Ally program to our members, and we noticed that we had credit unions starting to come on board as teams. So they would send
Amber might have froze. Zoom does that at the worst possible points. Can y'all hear me? It's not me, is it? Jennifer, I can see. Thank you. Amber. Well, I know, Amber, we'll come back to you. For anybody that has to wrap up at half past the hour, yes, thanks, Patricia. Anyone that has to wrap up at the hour, we'll come back to Amber. But for now, while we're waiting for her, I'd love to just check in with you on, do you feel that your organization needs additional training to learn or submit some of these learning objectives? And you can answer yes, maybe no, or I don't even know right now. I'm so overwhelmed. So any one of those. And again, if we could get 80% participation, that's what we're looking for. See about, 40%. Hey, y'all are doing awesome. So just kind of curious on where you're at on learning. Many, maybe. Yep, a couple maybes and no's, many yeses. Awesome. Yeah, and I think this just helps us kind of understand, takes a barometer. Like I said, Amber's been on the program for the last 2.5 years, she's had 3 different groups of credit unions come through. And just Amber, if you can come back, if you get your Zoom to work.
Yeah, sorry. Cut out all of this. I love technology.
The worst
Yeah.
possible moments.
I know it's guaranteed to happen. It's almost Friday. I feel like my computer's just in that mindset at this point. Yeah, so we took a cohort. This last one has been my favorite, so I really want to focus on what they accomplished. They had a team who, after the kind of social injustice occurred, and we had a huge spike in kind of a scramble for our credit unions on we need to implement some kind of DEI training, and they needed to look for resources. And we had already had the Lead Like an Ally program in place. And so we were like, come to us, we can help you through this process. And so they had started a DEI committee in which they had chosen to take this program in supplementation to their face-to-face meetings that they were having. They were sending their entire committee through the program itself. So they would take pieces of the program, go through their meeting, have these conversations, which I'm so proud of our members being willing to lean into these tough conversations. And for programs like this who have the abilities to supplement how to have those conversations. And that's truly what we were looking for and what we needed. And Julie's program really provided that to us. People didn't know where to start on how to have those conversations. So being in the midst of, how do I get into this? I'm going to be uncomfortable. How do I navigate it? And that's what this program really is so beneficial for. And then, yeah, the other part of it was those contact calls that I was mentioning before. Julie kind of came in, was willing to have conversations with, hey, what piece are you struggling with the most? And let's unpack that. Let's continue this conversation. So the group was really open and honest and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. And then Julie was able to kind of flush it out for them and continue to engage them in that conversation so that they could get to the next piece of the puzzle. These types of programs, and particularly a program that's willing to take you through 12 months of learning at your own pace, it's a choose your own adventure. It's small snippets, so you're not spending hours and hours in front of a program, is what's truly moving the needle in the direction that we need to go when it comes to DEI.
Thanks, Amber. Well, and you did such a great job. I think the preparation of getting folks on board, we do help with communications planning, but I think for y'all thinking about wherever you're with training next year, I think what Amber did really well was setting intentions up front and expectations up front. And I mean, you mentioned a great point, Amber. I mean, who wasn't struggling last summer with resources, right? It's like, okay, we've got to do something with anti-racism. We've got to do something to show we support social justice. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations kind of like made the statement, made the contribution, like did the one thing, and then like kind of went quiet, and y'all stayed with it. So it's really, I think, important now than ever. And consumers are smart. They're recognizing that, who's staying on it, who's continuing to do the work, and they're rewarding that with their money. And so I just think it's really great that you really were intentional and consistent with the program as well. So thanks for your leadership, and thanks so much for sharing your story with our group. Thank you. Last thing I wanted to share, and then it's open for free questions. As a reward of staying till the end, we're happy to offer everyone a free guest pass. So if you liked what you learned about today, go in, check it out. It'll stay active for 21 days. So you have it now until about the holiday break. You could actually get all the content done. Like it's only about 2.5 hours of actual live content. Now, of course, we want you to do more work than that with the workbook and some of the additional resources files that hopefully will be tempting to learn more. But at a minimum, I mean, you really could go through the full program yourself if you'd like to. More importantly, think about members of your team that can benefit. We have a couple different pricing models. If you're budgeting for next year and need pricing info, just send me an email. It's $497 per learner. Of course, we discount that based on size. So we're taking 10% off of that for groups of 10 or more. If you want to do it the small team, DEI council, employee resource group kind of thing, or senior leadership team. Or if you want to extend it to your full organization, we have a licensing approach for small organizations as well as large organizations. So we just base that on your number of employees you want to extend that to. And we can zip you, share all the MP4 files and workbook files very easily in most situations, barring technology. It's really easy to transfer and license those files as well. So that's just a bit about what to expect. So for next steps, we will send you those free guest passes later today. Be looking for that. That will be sent to the email of which you registered in Eventbrite. So for anybody that wants a different email for it to be sent to, just chat me what email you'd prefer to that to be sent to, or send me an email. We will be looking for your feedback. So if you can participate in the guest pass program, please, please, please tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, things that helped you with, things that didn't help you with. We really are want to model the inclusiveness of the gifts of feedback. And so we're just so thankful for everyone's support. That's all we had ready for you. What questions do y'all have? Thank you. Questions. What didn't I get to? Thoughts, questions. I'll be quiet. And we actually teach this in one of our courses, to say quiet for 7 seconds and wait for people to think. So I'm going to be quiet awkwardly for 7 seconds. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Stephanie, for the question. What are some suggestions for setting expectations prior to the course? I love that. And Amber, feel free if you want to jump in here. You probably have better ideas. Amber, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, so part of what we do on our side is I generally have a meeting with the individual who's kind of spearheading the program itself. And we'll talk through kind of the course content, the how long the expectation is to take through the training program, to take like the snippets and like the workbook and my suggestions. Because I always suggest to set aside time to be able to meet and talk about it, especially if you're running a team through, because it's important for you to, if you're working on or learning how to engage in these conversations, to actually go and engage in these conversations as well. So if you're doing it personally, set aside time for yourself. When you take a snippet of the program, set aside time for yourself to be able to, on your calendar, just block some time to go have a conversation with somebody, or reach out to Julie and her team. They are phenomenal about getting back to you and being a resource to have those conversations with you as you go through the program. So, up front, it's just one of those things that sit down and determine your commitment, and then set aside those times on your calendar so that you can focus on that.
Thanks, Amber. Yeah, I think it's always good to have some FaceTime talking with leaders about the importance of it. I would say too, Amber, what you did is like really make sure this most senior leadership team is on board and engaged, because again, we all know this work does not work if senior leadership's like, oh, great, you're taking that course, go, good for you. Or like, hey, this is important, but we're going to do this instead and deprioritize. I mean, people read between the lines really quickly. And unfortunately, training in general tends to get sidelined, especially diversity training. And so it's not going to work if you don't show that commitment from the senior level. So get them on board. One of my debriefs with a client just recently that completed the program, their white male CEO came on and shared like his specific learnings. And I could tell, as somebody that wrote this content, he had actually watched the videos. It was like a game changer. I mean, you can see everyone else, like the peer pressure around the Zoom room of like, oh shoot, Matt's serious about this. Like, I better do this work too. And honestly, for those of you who are like doing this work all the time, if we start to see, I really like, I'm hoping for the day when we start to see chief diversity officers and folks leading diversity and inclusion inside organizations be promoted to those roles. Like this is so important that's a skill set we're taking to our C-suite, or well, if you're not already on the C-suite, but the CEO position, the board positions, to have that background. I mean, wouldn't that really show the importance? So anyway, I sidetracked there, but all that to say, intentional communications with the leadership team and just some little quick snippets. Y'all are going to see some of our quick snippets about it as you get in the program, but you can easily share a promo video and the introduction video. Like Amber said, if you have questions or want content that's not already on our learning system, we have sample language for communications that we can share with you too. And JC and our team manage this list every day. She's always responsive unless she's like out of the country. She almost always responds the same day. So this isn't something we just like push out and say, see you later. We're definitely here as kind of air coverage to make sure you have everything you need to. Awesome. Patricia had a question. Did you review other ally programs like, on LinkedIn Learning to make sure your work stands out? Yes, Patricia, I'm actually going through a lot of those courses right now. I admittedly have not been through all of them. We have been applying to do LinkedIn Learning several times, so we're hoping that we're on that list next year. But for now, I mean, I would say that is a competitive offering. And if you think that your employees will go through LinkedIn Learning and you can leverage that program, and from what I've understood, it's free or very affordable at a minimum, go for it. Like we think there's plenty of room for everyone in this work. And I'm just really thankful that other organizations are providing this content. I would say the two ways that ours are really different from a LinkedIn Learning program, not having seen all the content, ours is a lot more comprehensive. So LinkedIn Learning tends to be really, really short micro doses, an hour tops of content. Ours is more closer to 3 hours. So you're going to get more content. And the workbook is super comprehensive and it's personalized to you. You write in your own responses. You have those additional resources and tools. And then the other thing, if you use our LMS or your own LMS, you have that discussion board and the metrics to track too, which you can't always do in a LinkedIn Learning system. So forgive me if I've misrepresented any of that. That's my understanding of LinkedIn Learning though. And honestly, probably the most competitive service that we found so far. Y'all let me know if you've seen something similar to this. There are some great anti-racism courses, but anti-racism is one aspect of DEI. So just know that when we talk about racism very, very succinctly in the course. We have a whole 6-week course dedicated to anti-racism that I co-facilitate with a woman of color, a dear friend of mine. So just know that that's a small part of the bigger DEI umbrella that we're talking about here too. But there's lots of great courses that we've had an opportunity to take on anti-racism that I highly recommend. Catherine and my team just went through Anti-Racism Daily with Nicole Cardoza. If anyone gets her newsletter, she had a great experience with that. So there's lots of other tools out there, and there's lots of opportunities to continue to learn about this stuff. I'm guessing based on y'all's questions and your titles that you're already passionate about this and educated this. It's about getting it to other people. Right? This is the challenge of DEI, is like, how do we get the people that don't get it yet on board? And that's what this program is really tailored to, not the people that already know this stuff. It's the people that need to know this stuff, that don't know any better, that need to know better, and they need to want to get better too. So that's part of meeting people where they're at. Other questions? Any other tools y'all are using that are working for you, or other aspects of DEI for next year outside of training that we haven't talked about? Feel free to share.
Hi, Julie. This is Todd.
Hey, Todd.
We just did an activity within our training development team of it's a great video of Kim Scott and Trier Bryant. It's like 5 minutes, and it's just a 5-minute video. We watched it as a team, and now we're going to implement some of their suggestions. They give you basically three steps on how to, mitigate biases and start
Well,
and start identifying them as a team, as a safe space. They use purple flag when someone makes a biased comment, and then you know, thank you. They give you an approach. Really awesome video. It's off of Harvard Business Review. I'm happy to pop the link in
Yeah,
here
please
into the
do.
chat.
Please do. Yeah, Kim Scott. And who was the co-facilitator?
Trier Bryant. I think
Oh,
she's
yeah.
a co-owner with Kim Scott.
Yep, she's the author of Radical Candor and Just Work is the latest
Yes.
book too. That's really helpful for like bullying and discrimination in the workplace. I took a lot from that with like the I statements and the you statements and how
Yes.
to use that.
Yes, but it was
Really helpful
just
frameworks.
a great succinct video on specific actions you can take as a team to start to identify your biases in a safe space, and continue to educate the team. And our group director was also on our team meeting, and he saw this, and now he wants to use this with his team
There you go.
at the director level. So we feel like it's just starting small, starting with our teams to help do this and just organically start to grow it. So I'll see if I can pop that link into the chat.
Thanks,
But that was just a great it really energized us as a team this week. And so
yeah.
I'd love to share that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, definitely share that in the chat. And I really appreciate, Todd, you speaking up and sharing your perspective. Todd, you just came into the diversity space earlier this year, right? He's like, so I'm a white guy. Like, what am I supposed to do with diversity? So I just love his vulnerability and willingness to like, I don't know what I don't know yet. I'm going to find tools and resources. We definitely need more folks like you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for saying that. Since we've had that discussion, I have been trying to research and just do everything I can to start to be an ally. And I can't wait to go through your course.
Cool. Thanks, Todd. Anyone else? Other tools, resources? We have a few more minutes if people are still free till 15 after. We purposely saved this time just for questions, just for story idea sharing. All right, well, you're still on. I haven't seen anything. I'll keep it open, Todd, if you can find that link. Yeah, this is awesome. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Love to hear from you. So a few things to expect from us on our team kind of in closing. Again, you will get those guest passes later today. If there's a different email address you want that sent to, let me know. We will use the ones that you registered with Eventbrite. You'll get a few more messages from us just checking in. At a minimum, at the end of the 20 days, we'll let you know, hey, 21 days, your BS pass is expiring. Give us some feedback. Let us know. Take full advantage. If you're like me, most of my clients, most of my work is pretty light next week. For those of you, it's not the case. I'm sorry. But it might be a great opportunity to spend a couple hours indulging in the content. And I know I learn a lot, even if I feel like I know something about this already, or I know these things already. Sometimes that reinforcement is really helpful. Thanks, Todd. We're going to check that out. We'll add that to our resources list too. I don't have that one yet. And then Emmanuel Acho's, yes, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Super helpful. Those are all free online too. His books are amazing. He actually talks more to youth as well in his latest books, Uncomfortable Conversation with a Black Boy, which I really appreciate because we got to start this conversation earlier. Otherwise, we're just going to repeat, unfortunately, the same systemic challenge. So good stuff, everybody. Well, if that's all, we'll take off, let you get back to your day. We will get the recording file out to you as well. Please share with anybody that didn't get a chance to come or any allies you have in your network that might need help thinking about training for next year. So thankful for everyone's voices on this call and for making the time to be with us today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.